What's up, Taiwan? I'm Eric Gao. Thanks for joining us for the news. Taiwan's former Vice Premier Zheng Wen-san has been released on bail. He was detained over the weekend amid allegations of corruption. Zheng has since resigned as chair of the Straits Exchange Foundation. Joyce Zheng joins us now from Taipei with more. Joyce, Zheng Wen-san is a well-known figure within the ruling DPP. He was vice premier under former President Tsai Ing-wen. How is the party reacting to this scandal?
Well, President Lai Ching-te has accepted Zheng Wen-san's resignation pretty swiftly. Zheng is, as you said, Eric, one of the biggest names in Lai's DPP party, and Lai had appointed him as the Straits Exchange Foundation's chair in May. Now, of course, it's not as high profile as his former post as Tsai Ing-wen's vice premier, but is still important given that the foundation handles business matters between Taiwan and China. Many obstacles now lie ahead for Zheng. He's been released on bail of over $150,000 US, but prosecutors today are working to get that appealed by the High Court. They are pointing to the fact that other suspects involved in the case are still being held without bail, and that Zheng should be held to the same standard. Now, Zheng has been released on the conditions that he cannot leave the country and cannot contact other suspects involved in the case. But also happening today, Zheng's party, the DPP, will also be meeting to discuss whether they launch their own investigation into Zheng. And the big question here is whether Zheng will be kicked out of the DPP. Now, the allegations against Zheng stem back from his time as Taoyuan city mayor from 2014 to 2022. Prosecutors are accusing Zheng of accepting bribes related to a land development project. But Zheng has maintained that he is innocent, but if he is found guilty, this would not be the first time that a Taiwanese politician faces jail time for corruption charges. Former DPP President Chen Shui-bian spent 6 years behind bars over an embezzlement scandal, and this is a problem across the political spectrum. But just months into President Lai's term, he will want to make sure that his government doesn't get caught up in scandals that previous leaders have faced.
Thank you for that, Joyce. We'll be keeping an eye on updates to Zheng's case. That was Joyce Zheng reporting live from Taipei. There have been some chaotic scenes once again in the legislature over a proposal to tighten regulations on recalling elected officials. And civic groups are joining the fight against the changes. Tiffany Wong reports.
There's been more drama at the legislature, this time over proposed changes to Taiwan's Election and Recall Act. The main opposition Kuomintang says that the current recall rules are problematic and make it too easy to remove elected officials. The KMT mayor Zhu Long looks likely to face a recall vote soon, and now the party wants to strengthen rules over gathering signatures for a recall. Civic groups protesting outside the legislature say that the changes may not improve legitimacy of recall petitions and may put signatories at risk of leaking their personal information.
事实上，你如果要防堵虚伪联署，有其他更科学的方法，请不要用这种旧石器时代的烂方法。
The KMT says ID checks will help eliminate voter fraud. But there were more clashes today in the legislature between the KMT and ruling Democratic Progressive Party as the bills were up for committee discussion for the second time. There were farcical scenes as lawmakers pushed and shoved one another, with a rubber chicken even brought out at one point to taunt a KMT legislator. As a result, there has been no progress in debating the proposed changes so far. It comes after the KMT pushed through another set of controversial reforms earlier this legislative session, passing amendments that give the legislature more oversight over the executive branch. It seems now that the Recall Act will be the next battleground, and just as with the legislative reforms, the KMT will need to secure the vote of another opposition party, the Taiwan People's Party. If they can do that, they'll have the numbers to pass this legislation, if they can stop fighting long enough to do so. Alex Chen and Tiffany Wong in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Investigators are looking into the cause of a fatal scaffolding collapse on Sunday. They found faulty materials and a flawed design, which could mean criminal liability. John Ventrias reports.
It's been a dizzying 24 hours for the family of Ms. Ke, who died suddenly on Sunday. She was just arriving at work at Formosa Advanced Technologies in Yunlin County when scaffolding used for an on-site building project collapsed. She and one other person were killed, and 3 more people were injured.
我太太就跟2个人用走的撑雨伞过去，走还没到停车场，他就滑下来了，根本没有时间，也第一时间也来不及闪躲，也没有地方可以闪躲。
到医院之后，院方那边就说，妈妈在送往医院前就已经没有心跳、呼吸了。
With the shock of the collapse still fresh, investigators are trying to understand how it happened. Initially, some believed severe weather at the time might be involved, but already there are signs negligence might be to blame instead. Wall connectors taken from the rubble have turned out to be substandard, and the design of the scaffolding itself was flawed too.
7楼外墙的模板跟施工架，位于施工时预期最大荷重，妥为设计施工，造成这个人员伤亡的灾害，立即停工处分，并依照治安法第6条第1项规定，裁罚30万的罚款，并后续追究相关刑责。
County prosecutors haven't yet determined negligence as the definite cause, but they say they won't stop digging into what went wrong and who might be responsible. John Su and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
The Defense Ministry has detected 14 Chinese military aircraft and 7 naval ships operating around Taiwan since Sunday. 13 of those aircraft crossed the median line of the Taiwan Strait and entered the country's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ. This zone is not Taiwan's sovereign airspace, but it is used by the military for defensive purposes. A Chinese research vessel also entered Taiwan's waters on Sunday, coming as close as 20 nautical miles to the country's eastern coast before being driven away by the Coast Guard. Dozens of warships from around the world are heading to the Western Pacific for live fire drills, part of the world's biggest naval exercise, RIMPAC. This year's drills come against the backdrop of rising tensions in the Asia-Pacific region, so much of the focus is on improving cooperation. Jaime Ocon reports from Hawaii.
Destroyers, submarines, and a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. They're all among roughly 40 warships from multiple countries docked here at Hawaii's Pearl Harbor Navy Base. These ships are taking part in the U.S.-led RIMPAC exercise, the largest international Navy drill in the world. This ship, the USS Fitzgerald, has just come back from deployment in the Western Pacific.
Being able to communicate and being able to work effectively proves that whenever a challenge does arise, that we can come together as a team. It's my second RIMPAC, and I'm really excited to go through it again because I was able to see its successes last year, or 2 years ago, and I'm looking forward to doing it again.
But a lot has changed since the last time this exercise was held in 2022. The U.S. operates dozens of missile-guided destroyers like this one as a form of power projection, but that power is being challenged as the waters and airspace around Asia get increasingly difficult to navigate. In recent years, China has increased its military presence in the region, conducting dangerous maneuvers in international airspace, even coming within 20 feet of a U.S. aircraft. These actions add to an already complex security environment in Asia. On the Korean Peninsula, North Korea continues to fire missiles around Japan and South Korea. In the Taiwan Strait, Chinese fighter jets skim the airspace around Taiwan as a form of military pressure. And in the South China Sea, China's Coast Guard continues to harass Philippine ships trying to resupply outposts. It's this combination of geopolitical hotspots that is concerning many countries as trust in a U.S. response in a conflict fades.
The balance of power in Asia has shifted, and the United States can't be all things to all people anymore. And the United States loves nothing more than reassuring our allies. But trusting that commitment too much could be very dangerous.
That's why countries here at RIMPAC are looking to step up involvement in the Indo-Pacific to help ease reliance on the U.S. This Australian ship, known as the HMAS Sydney, is getting ready to deploy to the Korean Peninsula.
Sydney is on a 4.5-month deployment, what we call a regional presence deployment. And as part of that, we are conducting interchangeability tests with the United States Navy. We're conducting exercise RIMPAC. We'll deploy on Operation Argos, enforcing UN sanctions in the vicinity of North Korea.
But even this sharing of responsibility may not be enough to ensure the region's security.
So the more and more that these states can get together, I think will be better for stability in the region to show that they can act as a collective force, but we still have a long way to go.
As China modernizes and expands its military, the U.S. and its partners are having to adapt. That's where exercises like RIMPAC come in. The aim is to come up with new and more effective ways of keeping one of the world's most volatile flashpoints from erupting into conflict. Jaime Ocon in Honolulu, Hawaii for TaiwanPlus.
Be sure to stay tuned all week as we continue our coverage of the RIMPAC exercises in Hawaii. The sister of North Korea's leader has threatened military action in retaliation to South Korea's recent live fire drills. Kim Jong-un's sister, Kim Yo-jong, called the military exercises near the country's shared border, quote, suicidal hysteria. She accused Seoul of deliberately escalating tensions with Pyongyang to divert attention away from problems within South Korea. French voters have denied the far right a parliamentary victory. Instead, they have given a leftist coalition the most seats, but no majority. This means the country is facing the prospect of a hung parliament and political deadlock. Louise Watt reports.
Supporters of the French left take to the streets in Paris to celebrate their surprising win in parliamentary elections, overturning what was a shock first-round lead for the far right.
Notre peuple a clairement écarté la solution du pire pour lui. Ce soir, le Rassemblement national est loin d'avoir la majorité absolue que les commentateurs lui prédisaient il y a une semaine à peine.
The anti-immigration party National Rally came third in the second and final round of voting, after centrist President Emmanuel Macron and his Prime Minister teamed up with the left to keep them out of power.
Malheureusement, l'alliance du déshonneur et les arrangements électoraux dangereux passés par Emmanuel Macron et Gabriel Attal avec les formations d'extrême gauche privent ce soir les Français d'une politique de redressement qu'ils ont pourtant plébiscité largement en nous plaçant en tête des élections européennes, puis dimanche dernier, lors du premier tour avec près de 34% des suffrages exprimés.
The National Rally fell far short of its hopes of an absolute majority. But it's still not a good result for President Macron, who gambled on winning a snap election to hurt the far right and is now facing a hung parliament where the far left could call the shots and threaten his pro-business reforms. Macron's Prime Minister said he would be stepping down.
Je sais qu'à la lumière des résultats de ce soir, bon nombre de Français ressentent une forme d'incertitude sur l'avenir, puisqu'aucune majorité absolue ne se dégage. Notre pays connaît une situation politique sans précédent et se prépare à accueillir le monde dans quelques semaines.
As Paris prepares to host the Olympics, France faces political turmoil and possible paralysis. In his gamble to try to weaken the far right, President Macron has instead weakened his own power and left France's parliament more divided than ever. Klein Wong and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
Tokyo Governor Koike Yuriko has won a third straight term as the head of Japan's capital. Koike secured 43% of the vote, beating out 55 other candidates. After hearing the result, she pledged to move ahead with reforms and support the city's residents. Koike is the first woman to serve as governor of Tokyo, one of the most important political positions in Japan. This result is seen as a boost for Prime Minister Kishida Fumio's governing party, which supports Koike. An investigation has been launched into what caused a major fire in Bangkok's Chinatown on Saturday. At least 30 people and 2 firefighters were hurt in the blaze, mostly from smoke inhalation. Several homes and hotels were damaged. It took 3 hours to bring the fire under control. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Finally, check out these scenes from Samson, a censored 17th century opera being performed at the Aix-en-Provence Festival in southern France. I'm Eric Gao. Take care. We'll see you next time.